All right, my thoughts on Thrones of Decay overall. Um, so it depends, right? I'm a multiplayer focused channel, mostly around land battles. So that's what I'm going to focus on. I will try and be fair to those campaign players, but I'm the problem with campaign for me is that I'm very easy to please. Like you can release anything and I'm going to be like, "Sweet." So it's not very interesting for me to be talking about. So I guess we could just get ahead of that. Um, the free reworks for the campaign are amazing for the dwarves and for the Empire. It's positive for Nurgle as well. So even if you don't buy the DLC, the campaigns are going to be lit. Super excited about playing them. I think they'll be really fun. No complaints there. 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 territory. I didn't play a ton of the campaign, so I can't tell you, like, oh, the late game doesn't scale or whatever, but, like, I think they're going to be a lot more fun for Dwarves and Empire in general, and Nurgle will just not be atrociously terrible. Um, so that's free DLC. For the DLC campaigns, I'm just less excited, and that's not their fault, but like Elspeth, I would rather play the new Gelt or Franz campaigns because I just like them better as characters. I'd rather go play Marcus Wolfhard again. Nothing really changed about him, but I just enjoy that campaign a lot. So I'm probably not going to care about Elspeth too much. It's fine, so whatever. If you're just a campaign player, she's okay. She's around. I think the new units for the Empire are fun in campaign. Yeah, land ship's silly and fun. So if you're playing campaign, probably would grab Elspeth's. If you're playing campaign, you almost need to grab Tarmacon's because Nurgle just sucks so bad and needs more units, and Tarmacon brings a lot of good, fun units. So I would do that, and then Malachi is maybe the one I could see you going without if you do that thing where you only buy two of the three DLC races. I do think the dwarves need it the least. Their rework is pretty good, and then their new units are not. They don't change the dwarven style so much that I would think you need them, but they're fun. So, like, if you're gonna get all three, I would just get all three. They're all very good. You'll enjoy them. Um, I don't see this being like Shadows of Change at all, where people were like, "This wasn't worth the content." There's a lot of content in here, and a lot of it was free. So I also kind of factor the free stuff into the price point, which I know sounds weird, but it's like for the amount of effort, I would pay $25 or whatever the hell they're asking for. I haven't looked at the price. I'd pay $25 for this DLC. It's pretty expansive. It's pretty great. But if you just take the free stuff to me was like $10 worth of value. You know what I mean? So if you just take the free stuff, that's also excellent. So there's my campaign thoughts. Those are the thoughts I have that aren't as nuanced. So whatever. Campaign, positive. Now into stuff I normally talk about and people get mad at me. Multiplayer. If you're a multiplayer player and you're wondering whether or not you should get this DLC, maybe. Like, that's where I'm at. And it's a good, fun DLC. It adds a lot of fun units. Uh, but it's not necessary. Where, like, Shadows of Change, you were kind of held hostage in that Kislev was a D tier faction, but if you got the DLC, they became an S tier faction. Zinch was a B or A tier faction, and if you got the DLC, they're an S tier faction. Grand Cathay was already an A or S tier faction. If you get the DLC, they're an S plus tier faction. Like, so if you wanted to be competitive in multiplayer, you had to get the DLC. And I don't know if that's the case this time. It's still fun. If you're a Dwarf main, a Nurgle main, or an Empire main, you'll get the DLC. You'll get your money's worth out of it. I don't think any of them are worth skipping outright. But, like, if you're just a generic multiplayer player and you're wondering if you have to get this DLC to stay competitive, no. No. I don't think so. Looking at it, Elspeth is nice, but she's going to be the third or fourth best Empire Lord. So you can live without her. Null and Ironsides kind of suck. They might get buffed, but they kind of suck. Steam Tank Volley Gun's okay, but the basic Steam Tank is amazing, and you already have that. The land ship's all right. It's kind of cheesy. It's a little too strong, so it's either going to be banned in tournaments, or you can just counter it by bringing artillery or arm-piercing missiles. Um, the hero guy is okay. The engineers are okay. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything in the Empire DLC that's like you need to have this to stay viable. Just with the Empire rework changes and stuff, Empire is going to be an A plus faction. Um, The only thing you might need to stay up with competitive is the Hawkland long rifles. Those will be pretty impactful. I suppose I could just be sitting on that screen while we talk about this. Knights of the Black Rose are neat, but like Knights of the Blazing Sun and Empire Knights fill their niche just fine. They're good. Like I'm not trying to shit talk them, but you'll be fine without them. Tactically. Null Ironsides are kind of bad. Steam Tank volley guns, fine, but the regular Steam Tank's just as good. Landship's okay. Yeah, that really does cover all of it. So the Empire doesn't need their DLC to stay up to date, so you could skip it. If you, like, aren't an Empire hard main, but you still want to play them sometimes, you're fine without it. I think it's fun. I think it's still good, so probably... Again, I would advocate for grabbing it, but I'm telling you which parts you, like, need to stay up to date. Dwarves are a little harder. We'll see if the Slayer heroes end up mattering, but both the Slayer Lords are pretty meh. Malachi and the Demon Slayer are pretty meh. Doomseekers seem okay, but Giant Slayers and Slayers still fill that niche just fine. The Doomseekers aren't crazy. When I've used them, they're like, oh, this is okay. Slayer Pirates will be one thing that I expect to be quite meta. And then the Grudge Rakers are kind of bad. They're like Caster Blunderbusses, but not very good. Goblin Hewer is silly, but fine. And then I imagine the Thunder Barge is going to be banned in most competitive events because it's just so ridiculously overtuned and unfun. So again, with the Dwarves, it's kind of like, I mean, you can skip it and still be very viable. Nurgle is the big one, though. I think if you want to have Nurgle in your rotation, you need this DLC. Because it takes them from being a D-tier faction, in my opinion, to, like, B. It doesn't take them all the way to S, but, like, Pestigors are very good to have as a threat, like, in your roster. They're very good to have some medium-tier armor-piercing infantry. Plague Ogres are must-haves as well. Aggressive, monstrous infantry is really good. The Sorcerer of Nurgle Hero is a must-have to make some of your melee lords more effective, and also it's just so much cheaper than the fucking Plague-Ridden. Like, let's do Spirit Leech, Fate of Buna, Life Leeching, nothing else, Horse Mount. 1,095. If you want to get the Plague-Ridden with the same kit, Fate of Buna, Life Leeching, even if you cut that, he's 200, well, he's 150 gold more expensive on foot, and to give him a mount that matters, because the Palaquin's actually just freaking terrible, to put him on a Rotfly, he's 1745. So, like, you can get a caster hero that is significantly cheaper to support a melee lord. Then you get some good melee lords. Pestigors are amazing. Plague Ogres are amazing for this roster. In the game in general, they're not amazing, but for this roster, they're amazing. Rot Knights are super important and bring Nurgle back to effectiveness. And then the threat of a Toad Dragon for breaking boxes plus Bile Trolls are actually really good too. It's just like Nurgle got the by far biggest change, and they're not S tier. They're not S tier by any margin. I wouldn't even argue A, but it just brings them to like a threatening faction that you can have in your repertoire. So if you're playing multiplayer, I think you need the Nurgle DLC. I think you can skip the Dwarves and Empire if you're not a main, because you can still hop on them, and their base rosters will keep them in the A tier. They'll keep them threatening. And I think only if you want Empire and Dwarves, if you're playing a best of 3, and you're going to pick Empire or Dwarves in every single best of 3 you play, then you're going to need their DLCs. Otherwise, you could skip them if you're strapped for cash. I think you need the Nurgle DLC. I think you need it. Because it brings a faction all the way from the bottom to a mid-tier, and without it, you just don't have that threat. So, there's my multiplayer review of it for efficacy. And to wrap it up, my final thoughts on it is, I'm very impressed with this DLC, and I like it a lot. There's some fuck-ups, sure. The Thunder Barge is stupid. And again, campaign players are going to get mad at that. It's the caveat of for multiplayer. For campaign, I don't care. It seems fun. It seems fine. I'm not talking about that. For multiplayer, the Thunder Barge is stupid. It's a bad idea. It's terrible. Like, it's either going to be garbage or it's going to be toxic. And we're currently in the toxic category. The Landship, stupid. It's stupid. It's same category, either toxic or useless. And I think it's currently kind of leaning in the toxic category. Sure. But aside from that, the rest of the DLC units are either just kind of good, balanced, or even bad. And that's fine. Like, comparing it to Shadows of Change, comparing it to the Hunter, not the Hunter and the Beast, whatever the one with Oxyotl and Tark's the Brass Bull. Like, comparing it to those, there was much more, like, broken, must-have in every single game shit, and a lot more of the stuff in this DLC is kind of balanced from the get-go. So, very happy with it. CA honestly did do a good job, and I think we should reward them for that. Now, if $25 for DLC is outside your budget, that's fine. It's very expensive for a DLC. I'm not pretending it isn't, but I think it's worth it. I think CA really did put in the effort to make this a good DLC rather than a cash grab, and I'm personally quite happy with it. So it's a good new direction for them. Hopefully they keep it up.
Subscribe, yes.